And recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Suozzi, to inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. Thank you to the witnesses. You've had a marathon session here, and thank you so much for being here this long time and for preparing for today. Dr. Holtz-Aiken, earlier today, you testified that tax cuts don't pay for themselves. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so there's going to be a projection of a $2.3 billion increase, $2.3 trillion increase in the deficit because of these tax cuts and the way this tax bill was passed. $2.3 billion increase. And where does that money go? Last year, we saw a $500 million increase in stock buybacks in the United States of America. Are you aware of that, Mr. O?
I've seen a lot of numbers, and they tend to range between $500 billion and $1 trillion in buybacks.
Okay. $1 trillion. Dividends are up. The wealthiest 10% of Americans got the largest percentage of the tax cut. This money, it's like spending $2.3 billion additional over the next 10 years, is going to these places. That's where it ends up going in the long run. So this hearing today is the 2017 tax law and who was left behind. And I'm going to argue that the working people of America have been left behind for a long time, quite frankly. It's not new. It's been going on for a long time. Because since 1982, the stock market has gone up 1,200%. Since 1982, the GDP has gone up 600%, and workers' real wages have gone up 20%. So corporations and shareholders have been doing great, but working people have been left behind. And despite spending $2.3 billion in additional deficit spending, we're not doing anything to help the workers' wages, real wages, go up in any kind of significant way. So I would argue that the working people of America have been left behind. Ms. Abramowitz, you talked about the postcard form that's going to be used is being used right now as part of this. And we saw pictures of it used by the GOP and the president even throughout the whole process last year. And it was this nice little postcard. It looked very attractive. But as you pointed out, there's 6 more forms.
Just the outer label.
And have you heard that errors have been going up at the IRS?
Errors in terms of processing returns. I think we're still early in the filing season.
Well, let me tell you, the taxpayers advocate testified at another hearing that we had in oversight, and she said the errors by filers have gone up 200% so far with the new tax filings. 200% increase in errors. So there was no simplification. So that's just wrong. It's been a 200% increase in errors. And just so everybody knows, just so you're armed with these facts, is that when you call the IRS, only 17% of the calls get answered. And people wait on the phone for 18 minutes before their phone call is answered.
I would suggest that the 18 minutes is a very optimistic number.
Well, most people drop off. They only answer 17% of the calls. Most people drop off because they're waiting for so long to get their calls answered. So we've heard of all this railing about the IRS and the previous administration, but the new administration is making it worse. They didn't simplify things. They made things worse with this postcard and all the backup forms and the change in the process. People who've been left behind are people in my district, which has one of the highest percentages of people using the state and local tax deduction. I'm not going to go into the whole thing again here today, but I want you to know that 176 counties in the United States of America have a state and local tax deduction higher than $10,000 per year, 176. And 49 of the 50 highest state and local tax deduction utilizers are in New York, New Jersey, and California. Now, do you think that's a coincidence, or do you think that was done on purpose? No answer. Okay, that's all right. You don't have to answer that particular question. One other group that's been left behind are charities and not-for-profits. Because as hard as it is to imagine, as part of this tax bill, there's a new tax on charities and not-for-profits. If you are a religious institution, you're a church, you're a synagogue, you're a mosque, and you give parking permits to your employees, or if you give them transportation allowances, they have to pay taxes on it now. And not just the cost of the taxes, but now you have to hire an accountant who will help you fill out tax forms. Now that seems like they've been left behind, that they were really not considered during this process. Would you agree with that? Mr. Shelton, what do you think? You look like a church-going guy. Had you heard that before, that not-for-profits are going to have to pay this additional tax?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have, and I come from New York, too, so I know what you're talking about when it comes to state and local tax deductions.
Well, Mr. Shelton, my time has expired, but I hope in New York we can get together sometime and discuss this further. Thank you very much.
Thank the gentleman.